Hey, what's happening, YouTube? Just want to open up with making a video here, kind of breaking down one of Seal's videos on settings. I feel like there's some things that get a little lost, and maybe when people are trying to use settings and they don't necessarily understand what the goal that they're after. So I'm gonna try to help break down some of that information. But first, just a little bit about me. It's just some quick info. Um, I've done a lot of combat sports. I do business analysis, process analysis, and things like that. Just so kind of my background on the kind of the angle that I come at things whenever I am thinking about something and trying to break it down into a repeatable method so that we can understand and know how to create a baseline and improve. So I'm real big into scientific thinking. It's one of the things that I teach to businesses whenever I'm working some type of continuous improvement program or analyzing processes to try and improve a process or a product for a business. So yeah, just a little bit about me, and then again, I want to say thanks to everyone that has kind of uh, watched and enjoyed my videos. I do get a lot of questions about settings and things like that, and I think I can clear some air on that, and that's kind of the goal of this video, because people got questions, and I don't think the answers are always as straightforward as the questions. I feel either I'm inferring that or the questions imply. So I do have some stuff that we'll go over today. Not this curves type stuff. This is something different, but just game theory in general with FPS games. So it's FPS games are very logical in how they play out, and the more you think about them and what priorities are or what moves that player one does versus player two, you can start to see a better picture. And then after we understand what priorities are and fundamentals are, then we'll be able to engage with our settings in order to maximize that. The settings are a tool, but if you don't have the proper goal in mind, then it does become kind of difficult to understand what your settings need to be, because it's not as cut and dry as just copying someone's settings or taking something into account, whether you're looking for like maximum aim assist or less aim assist or using a dynamic curve or a linear curve or any of that stuff. There's other things that are way more important in the game, and that's here for some of the value that I'm trying to provide. Um, what kind of inspired me to make this video is, well, one, I didn't want to be caught up in the settings community because I undervalue, not undervalue, I don't place as much emphasis on it as probably most people. I actually play with different settings all the time, uh, which is a good thing and a bad thing. In one sense, it's a bad thing because it makes me not be able to focus on some of these fundamentals as much because my settings are set into being a certain way, and it's kind of like a sensitivity shock or a setting shock that I have to go into and work through, which I'm aware that it is detrimental to me maximizing on positioning, information gathering. It will affect with my mentality or composure. And if I don't have those three in line, it's going to affect my pace. Or maybe if I push my pace too fast, I'm going to neglect some of these other aspects of fundamentals of FPS games that is highly important. Or it can throw my centering off, playing with cover and concealment, and then proper clearing for safe positioning and information gathering. So just to kind of move forward here, I'll show the video, or at least the portion of the video that really kind of got me thinking about this. and also kind of the direction I want my channel to move in. But I'll get into that a little bit more later.
So today I'm going to talk about why high sensitivity actually destroys your movement and makes you a worse player when it comes to moving really good. And this might seem extremely contradictory to what everyone else says, because everyone's like, all right, well, if I just go to my settings real quick, right, and turn up to really high sensitivity, well, then I'm going to be able to look faster. And if I look faster, then that means that I would be able to theoretically move faster, because now I'm looking all over the place. And if I control.
Yeah, so he's kind of framing this up in a manner that is I think is a little misleading. Which is fun. Like I love his content. It's always outside of the box, and I like thinking outside of the box. It's just my nature. Um, but I think what he's trying to get at, if I were to frame this up into these fundamentals, at least in my eyes, if someone else has some other fundamental that would go into this grid, that'd be great to hear about. Feel free to throw that into the comments below. But if you're sensitive, oh sorry, mic went out. Your sensitivity settings, if you're running a high sensitivity settings, it's not going to improve your positioning. It could possibly affect your information gathering. But there's he kind of goes on forward into explaining that the the habit that he sees, I guess that's anecdotal, but the habit that he sees is when someone is rounding a corner, they're going from point A to point B, and then they're looking in the direction of point C. This is, if this habit is happening, then this is, I would say, like a low mature player that is doing this. And if they're using their sensitivity to correct this type of issue, that is a problem. But it's not because they're running high sensitivity. So I would say that this right here is a no go. But regardless of your sensitivity, if you're going to round a corner from point A to point B, and you're trying to get information on point C, right? So you're trying to get and in this instance, there was a little box where he starts to explain this, but the proper way, and you'll actually see this in a lot of pro players, is that they'll go from point A to point B, and then they'll turn, and then they'll strafe out while looking at point C the whole time. So this is in my world is actually called SMED, but this is how you're changing the process of working through this problem. It's actually a step-by-step process that players are doing, and I can kind of detail that is uh, run to corner is first step that they're doing. Second is upon arriving at corner, turn. And if we move a little further into this, we can and then put crosshairs on C. And this is actually for they're looking for the centering, right? But it a very different process, and you're achieving the same thing, but you are doing it more correct. So I'll say this group right here is over here, but this right here is, this process would be run to point B before exposing, giving up cover or concealment. Center on, and then the next step will be center on C. And some people will call this next step shouldering. Shoulder to C. And then before they make a decision, they will make they'll answer a question. Is there a threat? So they're going to question based off what they see. Then they're going to make a decision. So information gathering is always really important. We humans don't make good decisions without information. So always playing for information, positioning, and information. In this case, you can see that when the player goes from A to B, they're positioning themselves so that they can get information on C very quickly. They're doing that by using cover and centering. And they can even use, if they're fast enough, they have really good concealment. You'll even see pro players, so they'll snake at corners and stuff like that, so that they can maintain concealment. And while they're maintaining concealment, then they can gain information and centering. So, and then they'll ask themselves the questions, and they'll make a decision on what they need to do. So, long story short, I think I explained that. So let's move a little more forward in the video.
I just get used to it, then I'll have the best movement possible. And this isn't the case. Now, I'm not saying.
So this is also kind of framed up in the goal being movement. Movement is just a way that we get to do stuff. Your movement, if your movement is affecting your positioning information and messing up your mentality, your composure, you can't maintain centering or gain centering very effectively, or any of this stuff. It's really going to mess it up. So you cannot exceed the fundamentals.
To switch to 2 sensitivity like I am, I'm not even saying to switch to 4. You could play 6, 6, 8, 8. When I say low sense, I'm just saying like anything probably like 9 or lower or 10 or lower. Because I do think that if you're playing on 13, 16, 20, 18, around those ranges, it's not only is it unnecessary, but it's hurting your movement. And I'm gonna
yeah, this is subjective. I would say there's a good possibility, especially it really comes down to the person. Like what's your hand size, are how accurate are you with flicking? Did you put the time into it? Me personally, I don't know if I have very wide hands. They're very square. I don't have the longest fingers. But I have like a very wide palm with basically short fingers, short thumbs. If you look at any of my MMA videos or grappling videos, maybe you can pick up on that. But yeah, I prefer. I can play on any sense, but my movement has to adjust for that. I can even play on 20/20, but I have a hard time using the full range of motion on a stick consistently. But yeah, point being here is this comes down to genetics. Some people are extremely accurate at doing fast things. Not everyone has the best, twitch reflexes or anything like that, or plyometric capabilities. Everybody should be able to play at a low sense. Not everybody can play at a high sense. It really comes down to the genetics of the person. One, their physical ones, and two, being their mental ones. Your movement and mechanical skills cannot really exceed the person or player's analytical skills. So you need to be in tune with both mentally. How fast can you gather and process information mentally, and also how fast can you react and respond to information. And if you're like preloading your analysis abilities, kind of like in this structure where um, like even with aiming and centering and when you pull your trigger and when you don't pull your trigger, when you ADS, when you hip fire, like all those are like processes that you can analyze and figure out how to rearrange things. For instance, if you had a process, it's like, hey, what if I shoulder C? And I do this too. Sometimes I shoulder C and then I figure out how to center on C. It just comes down to you can rearrange these in any way. Any process that you put down, you should be able to rearrange that process and figure out how to maximize value in that process, because everything has a lead time. So how long does it take me to go from this point to this point? I don't know, maybe it's 10 seconds. How can I figure out if I rearrange this in this way, does that, drop it to 8 or whatever the case is? Just kind of spitballing here.
Explain too. So the big advantage that high sense does have is, yes, you could turn fast. So let's just say someone's over here, right? If I'm on a higher sensitivity, I'm gonna be able to look to the left, run over here, then immediately look to the right, and then run over there. But you gotta
Yeah, I don't think the goal is always to just look fast. I think it comes to how much you want to move your thumb, um, and I think how you prefer your dead zones is another important thing. If I'm running a low sense, I really do like a low dead zones. If I'm running a high sense, I do get away a little bit more with a higher dead zone, just because the pickup on the response is getting countered by the dead zone, or the speed of the sensitivity is countering the dead zone.
understand too that you're human. Your mind can't process things nearly when your character doesn't move faster. Like, he's not running faster if you're on a higher sensitivity. It's the same exact sprinting speed as if you're on a lower one. And when it comes to turning corners too, it
Yeah, what he said right there is 100% true. Sensitivity is not going to make you get into a position quicker or gain information quicker. If you're reacting to information, that means that you're probably not preparing your mind for potential information, and you're not centering or you're not gathering information properly. And part of that could lead back into, is my positioning incorrect?
doesn't matter how fast you turn this corner. It matters how accurate you can turn the corner and cut the corner.
Um, what I see what he's saying, but I think what really matters is your centering in a position to minimize the amount of time that it takes to get on a target, which is important. In this case right here, I think I would, coming around this corner,
Like
I
this,
think the thought
what
or
matters is
idea
how
should be,
as if you're on a low running faster if you're on a higher sensitivity. It's the same exact sprinting speed as if you're on a lower one. And when it comes to turning corners too,
so the idea here would be is getting to a position, and your initial centering spot needs to be here. And now if you do a slow centering, like kind of I know he likes to carve corners a lot with his crosshairs, which is good. But you don't necessarily have to do that. The only value add, or the maximum value add from this, is centering. I would say here, maybe centering here, maybe here, and then as he gets around this corner,
um, it doesn't matter how
centering on the box, and then
it matters
centering
how
at the
accurate you can
headies
turn the
at the other
corner and
side.
cut the corner like.
So right here, it would be how his crosshairs actually move from this point to this point to this point to this point, and then also to this. I think there's a box right there, but to this point. I know he likes to do like a really slow carve, like when I watch his gameplay, which is awesome. I like to do that too. But the other piece of it is you can prepare all that differently.
This
It just comes down to, are your crosshairs in the right place at the right time? Um, in this case, his crosshairs span or like crawl across the screen, whereas some players their crosshairs will pop to the value add areas and instantly it'll go boom, 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 and then back over here. While it's they're flicks, they flick to each of these like really fast. So, kind of his method or strategy and what he's thinking, and I think really what he's trying to explain is on this low sense, you can really take your time and carve all these corners. It's a different method, but the at the end of the day, like the value is are my crosshairs in the right place at the right time?
so that you can be the fastest you possibly can be. So people who play on like a 15 or an 18 sensitivity, if they're turning the corner over here, usually what they tend to do is this, and then turn over here, and then walk this way.
Yeah, this what he's explaining is very bad, and I see this with a lot of mouse and key players. Uh, they do not preload their work, so they basically what they're doing
Corner
is
over here, usually what they tend to do
while
is this.
as soon as he's here and their crosshairs are over here, but the threat is over here. Look at all this non-value add time of his crosshairs being right here. Like this takes time, right? Like I don't know. Let's say it's 0.5 seconds. Uh, this time needs to be more like zero point 0.1 seconds. So and this is what we call our lead time. So a lead time is how long does it take for the start of a process to reach the end of its process, and some type of good or value add is produced. And in this case, the value add is where are these crosshairs? This is centering. So
And then turn over here, and then walk this way. So they're like going over here, turn super fast, and go over here. Whereas if you just go and cut it like this, or even if you don't slide, if you cut it like this, you're getting there as fast as you possibly can. The reason why I'm a big advocate against high sensitivity is because you overcompensate a lot, whether it's your aim, whether it's your movement, every single thing. And the more you are inaccurate in your movement and your aim, the worse you're going to be as a player because you're going to be messing up. You know, I'd rather.
um, I think if you're not mindful of what your priority is, like someone trying to over prioritize movement but they don't understand positioning or information gathering or playing with information, changing information, playing cover, uh, or concealing and changing information, or whatever the case is, your movement is irrelevant. You can go as crazy as you want with your movement, but if you don't have like basic fundamental concepts of first person shooter games, then it means nothing.
Rather have, simple consistent movement patterns over and over that's going to help get me the most kills, and I can actually see my opponents because my screen's not flopping all over the place, um, than be on a super high sensitivity that I cannot control, and it's just going to mess everything up overall. And even a lot of professional players who play like 6-6, 7-7, things like that, right? They all have insane movement, and they're not playing anything above 10. They're
Now, what he's well, there are. I think there's two pros that play at 13, but for the most part, he's correct. And they set their settings up and they preload their work. They're not setting themselves up to react to scenarios. They're always setting themselves up to be prepared for scenarios. So their movement and everything, they're trying to get into a position before something happens, whether that's their crosshairs getting in position or them getting in the high ground or them causing another player to not be centered. There's like all these strategies and tactics that they do to play with information, positioning, centering or ruining centering of an enemy, so on and so forth.
not. Uh, at least the majority of them. Like, let's just say there's like once in a blue moon, there's like a pro player who uses 13. Great, he's using 13. But anything above that is just not needed. On top of everything I just said too, you don't really use your left stick for movement as much as you would if you're playing on a lower sensitivity. All right, and you don't want to rely on your movement totally being from the right stick. So that means like if I'm slide canceling right, and then I pop up over here, what I'm doing is in the middle of my slide, I'm rotating my left stick up and then to the left so that I can have um, more rotational aim assist popping out like that.
Just kind of expand on what he's saying here. Or my experience is, I like to. I want my sensitivity to be to help me. Like if I was shooting seal here, I would want my sensitivity so that I can center on this target as soon as possible. If my sensitivity is too low or my ADS sense is too low, however I run that combination, once I'm on the target, I want my micro adjustments when I'm on the target to be able to move to the target's head. And that's one of the reasons why players use like jumps, right? They're trying to jump their bullets up and at the same time they're trying to prevent critical hits from the enemy. So my sensitivity on how I usually play or is I try to maximize my base sensitivity so that my centering is like it happens as fast as possible, right? So we're looking for some type the quickest lead time on that activity. And then when I'm on target, I'm getting value add from that activity. But if my sensitivity isn't high enough, I have a hard time doing micro adjustments when I'm in static positions. In dynamic positions, this is the only thing that matters is the whole target. In static positions, if if I don't have a lot of time, I might not be able to make this adjustment. But if I do, um, I do like my crosshairs to be able to move up to the target's head. It's not the end of the world, but I try to do that as much as possible. Um, but another piece of this is trigger discipline. Is that if you did have the opportunity to start on on the enemy's head and you didn't take that, then that's your fault, right? Like, or that's my fault. Like, I should have done that. But if it's in a situation where I'm playing cover correctly or whatever, and it's going to be, I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with mirroring movements and anti-mirroring movements. Whenever we're in those types of gunfights, uh, I like to have the ability to try and make this type of adjustment.
All right. And if I'm on like a higher sensitivity, if I'm sliding, usually I'm gonna slide right here and then just look over here like that. That's what most players tend to do. You could say like, oh, I'm a high sense player and I don't do that, but this is what most high sense players. I'm talking about like the majority of them, right? That's what and aim is like because by playing zero game. Also, I am going to be streaming
All
on
right,
Twitch
yeah, I
soon when
think
I
that's
do start my live
probably just
streams,
a
so you guys.
conversational piece that he had there. Uh, Kind of moving back over here is I think there's some fundamentals that we can kind of discuss, and I have this game theory grid up. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with game theory or not, but uh, it has a lot of different applications. It's not just for video games. It was used in I don't know if you've heard of the Prisoner's Dilemma. If you haven't heard of it, feel free to look it up. But it's game theory is basically the science of decision making. Um, it got very popularized back in the 40s by John Nash. I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, but he came up with Nash's equilibrium. Anyways, going forward, so how this works is, let's say we have two players here, and everyone has decisions to make. So basically, if player one plays for a position and player two does not, then we do have some type of we will have a possible outcome. So in this scenario, and this is going to change from player to player. I mean, if their centering is off or something like that, if player one plays for positioning but their centering is off, and player two has better centering and reacts to player one, it could be better for player two. But in most cases, if we're playing for player one's playing for positioning and player two is not, then that is a decision that both players made. And that would probably be something along the lines of, I'm just making up numbers because it's relative to skill. I would say the player two has a 33% chance to win, while player one is going to have a 66% chance to win. So uh, these are like thought processes, moves, and how you play the game. And now on information gathering, if if they both play for position, uh, then we can just say it's going to be a 1-to-1, and we can say, all right, so they're playing even on these things. But let's say player one is actually better at gathering information. Maybe they're using shouldering, maybe they're snaking, maybe they're using headies, whatever that case is. Then player two is going to fail. Um, so in this case right here, it would be uh, I would say playing for information is going to get your centering in place sooner and faster. So this, I would say, centering is probably one of the most important things, along with positioning and information. I don't know, maybe all these are pretty equal, or weighted very similarly, but that would, let's just say that that's a 1 in 3 also. So you're going to have a 33% chance for player one to win this because they have positioning and they're better at information gathering. So moving on a little further, I mean, if they both understand this better or equally, then we're going to get another 1-to-1 scenario where they're both successful with this. Um, and now mentality and composure. So this is player one. They're both good at positioning and information, but let's say player one has the attitude of I'm going to own this guy. I know exactly what I need to do and how to win this. He's probably going to win that fight. And I'm just making up numbers here. And player two will probably lose this. So when it comes to mentality and composure, is knowing what you need to do and win, not blowing your chance, like trying to do some crazy jump shot too early, uh, jumping right into someone's crosshairs if it's a 50-50 gunfight. I mean, if you break someone, that's one thing, but your mentality and composure is really going to come from your confidence in your positioning and information gathering, and how well you know how to center and play cover. Now, on the other hand, let's say player two, he understands positioning and information, but he's like, man, this guy is going to own me. It feels too much like a 50-50. He's more aggro than me. I don't know if I can win this. Or maybe he knows what he needs to do, but as soon as he tries to engage, or maybe he engages too early, he panic melees, and it's just a lack of composure. He's not thinking about what the process is that he needs to do and perform, uh, or he hasn't thought about it and executed it enough times to where he doesn't have to think about that anymore. It comes with reps. So like having a very disciplined approach of knowing when to play strong and when to play weak. It's kind of like guerrilla warfare. Uh, when you're strong, I'm nowhere to be seen. When you're weak, I'm everywhere all at once. And now I usually frame this up. This next kind of thought right here on pace is I would say that this is definitely a secondary. It's this one is contingent upon these first three here. So you can't pace faster than you can. You can't pace in the game faster than you can have like positioning information and mentality. You're just going to get waxed. So you really need to use mentality, information, and positioning to unlock your pace. And if you want to play faster, then you need to improve at your understanding of positioning information and your mentality and composure. So the goal here is to really prioritize in what order do you learn the game and how do you actually improve. Um, so this is assuming that both players have all these mastered. If they don't have, if one has these three mastered without the others, then the pace is probably irrelevant because their mentality and composure is going to feed into this, and they won't be punished by bad positioning or bad information gathering. Some of these overlap, like information and centering, clearing. Those definitely positioning and information definitely overlap with cover and concealment. But so pace, this needs to be in check. You need to understand pace, and assuming both are equal in positioning information and their mentality and composure, then but one lacks the pace. That means if they lack the pace, then player one is going to outpace the player two. And if they outplace player two, then player two is definitely going to lose in this scenario. Because player one is going to be able to get positions on player two faster. He's going to be able to get information on player two faster. He's going to be able to develop and get in the right mindset and have composure faster than player two. So, assuming that these three, I think that these three are very fundamental. And I usually frame up these other ones that all of these need to be done. Uh, these first three need to be done at all times. They cannot exceed your pace. Your pace needs to be in check with these three. And then these other four need to happen all at the same time as well. And they overlap with some of these, but these are different concepts. So you're centering. If player one and player two are equal in these first four, it's an easy acronym to remember. It's just PIMP, PIMP. So if you ever need to, have theory in a nutshell, it's PIMP and the four C's. So moving on a little more, we have centering. So if player one is doing the first four, the PIMP and everything, and he does it with centering, but player two does not, player two is going to lose. So they might be good at like knowing where you are, the positioning and all that, but they just do not have this micro skill of centering. Um, the, he's going to lose. It's not going to be good for him. But we can start to frame up these types of scenarios and understand. And whenever you play the game, and if you are using this method to like try to analyze yourself, or if you need any help at getting analyzed, feel free to hit me up. I can help you understand what step did we miss out on something. But then again, Call of Duty specifically, or most first-person shooter games is everything's usually a 50-50 until you establish one of these fundamentals over another. Uh, or all, and you're able to abuse one of the weaknesses. So let's just say it's a 1-to-1 scenario again. Moving forward is playing cover. So if player one is doing all these and player two is doing all of these fundamentals, but one is standing in the open, the other one's on a heady, theoretically, the player one should be able to win. And player two would lose. So, and if this was like if I was really doing like a real game theory grid, I would actually be comparing like player one doing positioning, player two doing positioning, but it would be gridded out more like this. So this would be a probably like a 3-to-1 because we're comparing directly this line with what they're doing in this line here. So, anyways, moving forward. So I think you're kind of getting the point here. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. These numbers, again, are all phony baloney, but we're just putting this into the perspective of game theory. Concealment is this could be using cover, rotating out of cover, using high ground. It's basically hiding information. So on the one hand, you're gathering information, and you could be really good at gathering information, but at the same time, if you're really bad at giving up information, if you're always giving up free information, it does become a problem. Because the player two, if player one is giving up their concealment, player two is getting free information. So maybe they wouldn't have the best understanding of positioning and information gathering, but they would be getting free information, and which could help them definitely establish a position. They don't have to work for the information; it's free. I mean, they could also start shooting at you at a bad time with bad trigger discipline or whatever. But it's really does come down to a disadvantage. Let's consider everything is equal between the first set that we've already gone through, but it comes down to concealment. If one player is just giving up information too much and it's too easy, and they are it causes them to be very predictable. If you're very predictable, then you become an easier target. You can also use it to bait too, but in this case, you're starting to move past into some more complex game theory stuff. And then clearing. So clearing is trying to chop your problem up into smaller portions. Just to kind of describe that, let's say you're approaching a heady. You're coming up on like a hill, and there's some like houses or something down below. You actually getting into a position to where you can visually see like this area without exposing yourself to all this. And then you could take another position to like look at this over here, and then another position and look at this over here, and you're reducing the amount of one, you're reducing the information that the concealment risk, right? You're not giving up information, but secondly, you're protecting yourself from taking unnecessary damage. You don't need to look at the entire map all at once. You can really break things down, whether that's on a macro level. Maybe you're looking at an entire looking down from the top of a POI. Let's say you're on Central Station. You can kind of look at this at a portion of the map or a portion of where you want to cross, and break it down to make sure you just don't get fried. because if you get fried, it can enable a push or something like that, and it can be really hard. Or maybe you want to jump down to a buy right below you. You don't need to look at the entire area all at once. Just take small peeks. Check out a couple areas. And small quick peeks. You should be able to do it quick. The only information that you're potentially giving up will be sound. And I think you can reduce that and probably 80% of the time to just being giving up information on sound if someone is close or near. But if someone is close or near, that I mean that's what you're trying to figure out anyway. So I think in a nutshell, I just wanted to go over and cover this. I do enjoy Sil's videos, but I just wanted to put them into perspective with the fundamentals of an actual game and how your settings need to enable these. You're not ever going to violate these fundamentals. Like you're not going to be like, oh, I'm on 2020, so I don't have to worry about centering or cover or information. It is not feasible. That is not how the game is designed, and you can't do anything. Whether you play on 1 cents, 2 cents, or 20 cents, max dead zones, minimum dead, it does not matter. You will not overcome any of this. Um, so moving forward, just the kind of the takeaways from this is your settings need to enable just these two acronyms here, which is PIMP and the 4 Cs. Do not seek out settings that'll cause you to violate the accuracy and intention of these fundamentals. If you are struggling in game, revert back to these fundamentals and figure out where you need to put your efforts at. Don't over obsess about settings and things like that. Like if you're really looking to improve at the game, you need to master these fundamentals. I know humans like to, and this is everyone. It's called Parkinson's law of triviality. It's bike shedding. And this is basically what these settings conversations do. Is if you want to look this up, feel free to look it up. But basically, uh, humans humans tend to want to put their attention on something that they understand, and they ignore really complex things that they don't want to understand. And in this case, where this idea comes from with Parkinson's law is that at a nuke plant, a company is at a board meeting. They're discussing how they're going to design their nuke plan and what they're going to do, et cetera, and so forth. And everyone in that meeting starts to really get involved with the discussion on the bike shed. And it's because it's easy to understand, and it's easy for you to really like dive in and get involved with it. It's not a very abstract abstract thing to discuss or think about. So don't let your settings become your bike shed. You really put your time into these fundamentals right here. We're human. I understand. We get tied up in settings. It's fun. Sometimes that's what that's what our game day is all about, or our gaming session. But if you're truly looking at improving in the game, here's your takeaways right here. And then last but not least, like and subscribe down below if you like this type of content. If you don't, I'm not asking for you to like and subscribe. I do want to get more into analyzing pro gameplay. I think I can really set up a structure, kind of like a game theory structure on analyzing top players. I'm a huge fan of Diaz Biffle. Huge fan. And I think I can break down a lot of or Aiden, Scumming, I'm a huge fan of Scumming. I think I can break down a lot of those gameplays and really help relay what they're thinking and what the value add activities are that they're doing and why they're doing it. So kind of get past the settings talk and more into the fundamentals talk of how these guys are executing the fundamentals of the game so effectively. Um, and yeah, I just think I can help assist with the breakdown of this information. But then again, if you made it this far, please like and subscribe, or at least just comment down below and tell me what you think. You don't have to like and subscribe if you don't like it. I'm not going to pressure you. All right. Thanks. Peace.